All right, I think we can go ahead and get started here. So this is our November community call for BAI, and on the agenda today, we're going to kick things off with talking about AgentStack, formerly known as BAI Platform. I'm going to share a little bit of updates around what our focus is, what's on the roadmap, and just a high level of what we've been up to over the past month. And then after that, we're going to kick things over to Thomas D, who's going to give us an update on all things related to the BeeAI framework. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen. I'm pulling up our GitHub project board that's available within our projects. And so I'm just going to run through really quickly kind of the epics that we have opened in order of priority. So just for a high level, over the past month, we've been focused on, of course, we had the big renaming. So we were formerly known as BeeAI Platform, and we renamed to AgentStack. And that was largely due to the fact that there was a bit of confusion between BeeAI Platform and BeeAI Framework. And they're meant to be pretty distinct projects, but I think the naming convention made them kind of bleed into each other. And so we felt like by renaming BeeAI Platform to AgentStack, it would sort of allow us to take a step back and clarify the intent for AgentStack, which is really it being a full stack that enables you to take agents that you've built in any framework, whether it's BeeAI Platform or BeeAI Framework. See there, I'm doing it. The framework or Crew AI or LangChain or any agent framework out there, and bringing it into deploy out to share with end users through AgentStack. So we wanted to make that distinction and clarify kind of what we're doing with the stack. And so our focus over the past month has been just really sharpening what this stack is intended to do and what our strategy is around it. At this point, we're very focused. I'll highlight a few key epics here that are kind of serving as our focuses right now. I think we have a really fantastic foundation, and there are some known areas that we want to invest in a little bit further. For instance, with our CLI experience. So within the CLI, there's kind of all those commands that allow you to deploy agents, manage your agents, run your agents. We're really focusing in the next month over hardening the CLI experience and making it easy for developers to come in and have a very pleasant experience using the CLI. And so that's a key focus for us. Another focus is around, we renamed to AgentStack for a reason and making it clear that it is a stack, and you might not leverage every component of the stack when you decide to deploy the stack. And so, for instance, perhaps you want to use our server, leverage some of our components, the SDK, but you want to bring in your own UI when you deploy to production. Something that we're very much looking into is how can we make it so that people can leverage the stack, but easily plug in their own end user interfaces. And so that's something I'm going to pass over to Tomas W. to just say a few words about.
Thank you, Jenna. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so as Jenna mentioned, one of the, renaming the agent stack to stack is not just about the name, but it's also making sure that it is essentially a stack. So you can handpick individual parts of the stack, which will serve your use case, right? So we already have a BeeAI SDK, formerly BeeAI SDK. Now it's AgentStack SDK. And the problem with the SDK is that it's mostly revolved around like building agents. When you want to build agents, we provide pretty solid SDK that is basically a layer on top of A2A, so that we cover more complex use cases with the SDK because from our experience, building just plain A2A agents is uh, really difficult. There are a lot of little things you need to implement, and that's why we're really trying to make sure that the building experience is very accessible to everyone. However, that only covers the server part, right? The BeeAI CLI is a demonstration of the client part, and we currently we're of course we're leveraging some parts of it, but the typical client would be implemented in something like TypeScript or on a web. So and the UI, the actual GUI is our take on what the client could look like, but it's up to the users to actually the consumers of the agent stack to actually decide what they want to build with that. And since we're really trying to position towards the stack, what we need to do is deliver a SDK, the client SDK that would be suitable for typical technology which is used on the front end, and that's TypeScript. So our goal is to make sure that we would create the SDK for the client development, which would obviously be implemented in TypeScript. There is already some attempt in the repo. We are referencing the SDK inside our own UI implementation, so we're already using it, but it's still a bit too low level, and it still requires some insignificant amount of understanding of like what's our take on the communication of agents. How do you deal with things like leveraging the agent stack API in order to get the context token, and the tokens itself. That's pretty complex topic, by the way, which is currently being documented. And the goal is to make it simple. So we're building the SDK that would allow you to compose all the things together. It's gonna be like mostly composable. So instead of like giving you some high level abstract, we preferably want to have like lower level abstracts which you can compose together into whatever you need. So one example that Jenna mentioned in this particular epic is integration with Carbon AI Chat, which is like existing open source component. And just by having a available SDK that covers most of the complexity of communication with the agent stack agents or A2A agent stack flavored agents is something that is really needed, and it helps us speed up the development process tremendously. So yeah, this is the main reasoning behind it. I think you can expect this to be available pretty soon. And I think that one of the early examples, demonstrations of how it can be leveraged is basically the Carbon AI chat. So we're planning to probably open source an example of the implementation where it's going to be using the SDK. The SDK itself is also going to be properly documented so that you know how to use it in your projects. And yeah, it's going to be delivered pretty soon. It's very high on our priority list right now. So I think that's about it.
Awesome. Thank you, Tomas. I will call out a few other epics here. So another thing that we're very focused on is optimizing the UI specifically in the stack for end user consumption. So you'll see that within the UI, we had implemented some developer specific features. There were some call to actions around to like, see our documentation. This is how you build agents. We added the ability to add agents through the top right of the screen. There was that add agent button. We think all of that is super useful for the developer, but we also don't want to ignore the fact that we want to harden the CLI before we start layering on GUI features. And so our focus for this coming month is to basically clean up the UI to focus on what the true purpose of the UI serves in the stack, which is to deliver agents to end users, and make it a later thing to explore at like implementing a little bit more developer functionality. You can imagine developers having a pathway within the GUI to be able to see feedback that they get on their agents or get analytics or any sort of useful features that are specific for developers and not those end users that are consuming the agents. We're sort of bucketing those two things as separate needs. Um, and our focus on the coming month is to really harden the UI for end usage. So that means really tackling things like making sure error messages are very clear, so folks interacting with the platform, know what's going on. They have the correct kind of experience that makes it pleasant. So that's something that we're very focused on. And so those are our top three priorities at this time. There's other things I'll mention that are on our radar for next, which are really diving into the end-to-end developer experience and thinking about we today when we offer a template for folks to come in and leverage our template, build their agents, and then deploy them out to the platform. But we also understand that people are coming and discovering our projects that have existing agents that are built out their own existing projects. And so how can we implement different functionality, maybe in the CLI, that allows you to initialize your project to be, agent stack ready or deployable without having to port everything over to like a different template. So thinking about the developer experience and making it more pleasant for deploying your agents with the stack. And then some other things like rate limiting, I think is going to be very important, and fine-grained authorization for agents, models, MCP servers, thinking about from early adopters understanding what is the needs around being able to restrict access across resources within your single deployment is going to be something that's very interesting to learn about. That will guide kind of how we approach this. And then, like I said, as a later, starting to think about once we've hardened the CLI, how can we start to expose some of this capability in the UI in a kind of a separate experience for developers so that it doesn't kind of bog down the clean end user experience that we're intending to build. Okay, so that is it for the agent stack updates. And at this point, I will pass things over to Tomas D.
All right, thank you, Jenna, and hello, everyone. Let me share my slides, terminal slides, where I will give you some update on the framework side. So today we are about to release a new version with bunch of new features, and one of them is, for instance, adding a reason for our requirements. So far, if you created a requirement, that requirement can produce a set of rules, and those rules are then applied to the underlying large language model. It's part of the system prompt. But what was missing is the explanation, the reason why the given rule is applied. And now you can easily use this parameter to nudge the model or help the model to understand why the given tool is not available and when the given tool might be available. So this is a first feature. It's optional. It can be used with the rule class directly, or you can use it with a conditional requirement that is in the framework out of the box. The second and very important update is auto-fixing feature for malformed tool calls. What does it mean? It means that if you use a model that or a provider that doesn't really support given tool choice parameter, like forcing the model to produce at least or at least one tool call or none of the tool calls and so on, the model can do something else without us knowing that. And if that happens, the framework used to just raise an exception and aborting the whole execution flow, which might halt your gains. And so we implemented a functionality that is built into the chat model class that will try to fix those invalid tool calls by adding a custom message and basically retrying with additional messages that are steering to the model to produce something that is valid. So no more chat model errors, hopefully. On that note, we noticed that some models might produce like double escape tool calls. So instead of producing a text that is a valid JSON, it produces a text that needs to be double decoded. It's like you decode a given string and you get a string instead of a dictionary. So you do it once again, and then finally you get a valid tool call. So this is handled out of the box by the framework. We also are handling incomplete Unicode chunks. So if you are working with languages like Japanese or Chinese, and you are streaming the tokens, you could had some hard times doing that because of invalid chunks. So right now we are awaiting for the complete chunk, basically to gather all tokens that will make a valid Unicode character. The agent stack integration is now upgraded. We added a support for nested trajectory. So if you are using, for instance, recommend agent with handoff tool, you can see the whole trajectory in the UI. And we are also propagating more events from the stream tool call middleware. So it now emits an event of like a final update event without the need for having the streaming parameter set on the chat model. So that means the implication is that the recommend agent now emits the final answer event, so that you don't need to, inspect the final outcome of it. So it's now built in. All right, so one example for the global trajectory middleware update. So far, if you are using an agent like this and you wanted to see like tool calls, you would need to either use global trajectory middleware and see the logs in your console, or you would need to register a custom callback for the nested event that corresponds to the tool call. Now it's simplified. You can register a global trajectory middleware. You can just create the instance and set a bunch of like rules or what you are interested in. Like maybe you just care about tools or just about one tool or a set of like classes, and then you can attach listeners to that given middleware instead of the agent itself. The signature is strictly typed, and this, for instance, the start event gives you like the formatted message and then the original event that has been captured. So in this case, you can, for instance, log which tool is is executed and with which input. So this is a first example, and maybe one more explaining the rules. So if you use an agent with, for instance, this like small planning agent, you can use a conditional recommend forcing or saying you can use DuckDuckGo search tool, but only after calling open method tool. You need to invoke that DuckDuckGo search at least once and at maximum twice. And we can nudge the model, hint the model to see like, why do we need that? So if the given rule is applied, this will become part of the system prompt. There are other improvements. So for instance, you can pass a custom message formatter to the global trajectory middleware to maybe enhance the logs. We removed the next step from the thinking tool, as the next step was kind of complicated for some models. And we also was very strict about about the signature, the next step tool, which might cause some troubles for APIs like Grok. We found a bug in the handoff tool, how it's cloned. So we fixed that. We improved the Open API tool. So now it handles more complicated schemas, and it also has a new factory method for creating like a set of tools, one tool for a given endpoint and a given method. So it's more like easier for LLM to understand the context. There has been some update for the MCP in general. So we are now guessing and trying to unpack the output of the given MCP tool, because some tools are returning JSONs, but those JSONs are basically wrapped in text messages. So it's like a JSON double escape, which is something that the LM doesn't really understand. So we are trying to verify that if it's present, and if so, we unpack that. We are now able to register prompt templates via the MCP serve integration. So now it becomes part of the server. You can filter your agents for the agents tag via the serve module. And you can also, for the A2A client, you can pass custom URL if you are not running it on the local host. And we did some like small changes. You can see the change log and those commits over there. And maybe one more thing about workflows. We made some changes like in the initial proposal, and it's gonna be even more tremendous. And we are planning to release that like ASAP. We have a working proposal, working implementation, and now we are just working on the documentation and final steps. So that's it. Thank you. Back to you, Jenna.
Thank you so much for that update, Tomas. All right, well, at this point, let's open things up for any questions. I'll give folks a few minutes to think of any questions. Feel free to unmute or raise your hand if you're not able to unmute, or drop things in the chat. Right. Peter, let me see if I can.
Yes,
Are you
hello.
able to unmute? Perfect.
Yeah, so I was just wondering if there's any news about the TypeScript SDK for BeeAI, because I noticed there was um, some agent types, like the requirement agent, I think, is not supported there, and there is I think there's lack of updates. So is there any plan for that, or it's dropped out of support somehow?
So are you referring to specifically the BeeAI framework TypeScript support?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So that definitely is on our radar. Unfortunately, like with our team size and our current priorities, like with agent stack and other things, we haven't been able to prioritize that. So it's something that we recognize that could be very important, and we're open to collaborating with other teams, given that this is an open source project. If others find that this is an important feature, maybe we can work together to get it, get the right issues opened and work together. But just in terms of like some of our core folks right now, it's really just not something we're able to take on right now.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Well, I don't believe I'm seeing any other questions. I definitely encourage you all to please open issues in either our agent testbed or sorry, agent stack or agent or the BeeAI framework repos. If there's certain features that you need or bugs that you come across when using using the products, it's very helpful to be able to capture those and add them to our list. So please do so, and we're always looking for feedback on what things are important to you based on your specific use case or your context. So always please reach out on our Discord. And also if any further questions come up, you can contact us on Discord as well, and we'll be happy to get back and chat with you. But I think that's it for today, so we can wrap up a little bit early. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.